Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Wondergoal, the soccer betting podcast from the Action Network. My name is Michael Leboff, and joining me for tonight's episode is Anthony DeBundo. BJ Cunningham is on assignment. AFCON. He's too busy with AFCON, so it's just me and Anthony tonight, and the two of us will go through the upcoming 10-match Premier League card, run around Europe, give out our favorite underdogs, and then our favorite bets for the Premier League in this upcoming weekend. But before we get into all of that, a reminder that Wondergoal is presented by our friends at Bet365, and Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boost with them than anybody else. Every day, they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays. Oh, and they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boosts and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. You must be 21 or older. You must be present in Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, Louisiana, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, or 18 and older in Kentucky. If you have a gambling problem or know someone who wants help, please call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms, conditions, and restrictions apply. All right, Anthony, just you and I. So we'll get through this this Premier League slate. Once again, BJ is on assignment. He did give us his favorite underdog and his best bet, so we'll let you know when the time comes what those are and what the parlay is going to pay out. I want to start with Everton and Spurs. I know Arsenal and Liverpool are is the headliner, but let's start with the derby between you and I. Your Everton, my Spurs. Everton's plus 180 at home. Spurs traveling plus 145. The draw is plus 250. I'm done with Everton. Forever, I think. I'm just genuinely can't do it anymore. It was so, I think from the third minute of the match against Fulham, I knew it was going to be nil. I shouldn't say 0-0. I just knew Everton weren't going to score. It just felt like one of those. And I think that we're going to see that a lot from them just because of what we talked about in our last episode. They are spent. They are spent. Those guys dug so deep. They played, I thought, a pretty good match. Couldn't find the back of the net in the 0-0. I think they're over 5 expected goals against Fulham this season in their 2 matches, 0 goals. But I think we're going to see a lot of those kind of matches, and this is not the type of matchup you want to go into with a squad that is absolutely decimated because of it being thin.
Yeah, there's money to be made betting against Spurs with Leeds, and we've talked about this a little bit. If you just watch them, even when they bring in defenders, like the commentator today in the Brentford match quipped about how they brought on their new center back, Radu Dragusin, and the commentator made a joke about how Ange is finally, being more pragmatic and bringing on a defender. And then like the next 10 minutes were just like chaos and high wire. Like they're just not able to hold leads, and Brentford easily could have made that a tie today. And so if you see Tottenham get ahead, I think it's worth going against them live in the market because I think the way they play just is conducive to more goals happening, which when you're playing with a lead, you generally want to shut it down. And, there's going to be value going against Spurs as a result of that. And I think you kind of saw that in the last meeting. Remember, this was not that long ago that all these matchups happened. So we kind of have like a recent point of reference. It was right before Christmas, and Spurs and Everton played a relatively even half. Pickford had a bit of a howler, and Spurs were up 2-0. And then you looked up, and it was Everton scored, but there was a foul. Everton scored, then they hit the post, and then in stoppage time, they had multiple chances to tie it up. Like Everton were consistently able to get chances on the break with just very basic stuff. Yep. Long ball to Calvert-Lewin, runner off the back, in behind, odd man rushes. And granted, that was a makeshift Spurs back line. They did not have Romero and Van de Ven. We saw them today concede 1.7 XG to Brentford. The biggest chance they concede comes off of a bad back pass. Okay, that happens. But it wasn't like Brentford couldn't consistently get into the penalty area. They didn't consistently look dangerous on the break. They had an offside goal, barely ruled off. So I think it's hard because are we underrating Abdoulaye Doucouré's absence? Like, is he really that valuable?
No, I mean Everton fans are not. That when he's been out, people have been like this team is completely different without him since Deitch took over. So I don't think
no Onana and Doucouré, you're losing a lot of
right. You lose, yeah, and I mean Nogana, like, right. Or if he comes back, I guess since Senegal's out, but what are you getting out of him after that? Like
They all had to go back to Senegal to meet with to go back to the home base before they
yeah,
could go back to their teams, all the Senegalese players. So that could delay his return. So I don't know what his status would be, but you mentioned it. Like there's a bunch of players that made this a very good midfield ball winning team and made them like a very like effective pressing team when needed and direct possession team. And they just don't really have those guys. Like they're just not getting that from Garner and in the midfield right now. Like it certainly feels worse. They had to play Harrison centrally against Fulham. And like you said, they didn't play bad. I mean, they finished right around where I thought they would relative. It was like a pretty even match. Probably should have been 1-1, ended 0-0. Like there was a controversy. You were just, talking about off air, the handball, the hand of God from Anthony Robinson. Crossbar for Fulham. Like there were chances at both ends, but I think if you want to play this, it's got to be like an Everton team total live or look to get them to play back into the game if they fall behind, because I don't really think Spurs can hold a lead. And Tottenham today, we can kind of we'll save the antics. It was an epic match for shithousery. With Maupay doing the darts celebration after he scores, and then Madison trolling him back, and Maupay just posted on Instagram about how he's never been relegated, unlike Madison. So just an epic match for everything that we love between Neil Maupay, darts, James Madison. Ivan Toney got on the board. Didn't quite get home for the 2+, but he got home for anytime betters. Brentford +1 was a push. Like for a minute, we looked like we were going to win Brentford moneyline live. Like that was just an amazing match, even though I lost money net on it. But as far as this matchup goes, like I don't really disagree with the market. I show a little bit of value on Everton, but again, like the midfield situation is not great, and the depth is not good either. So I'm more hesitant to fade them. And I think if I did fade them, I would just kind of target the attack and say that like this Tottenham setup is just so poorly set up to defend what Everton wants to do, and that could be a problem.
this sounds kind of dumb maybe in my head to say, but I'm going to say it anyways. It's the type of situation where if we were coming back from, Everton having a full week off, and even with this squad, I'd feel a lot more comfortable than it being a short turnaround after FA Cup midweek match, another Premier League, like third match in 7 days. So, I just don't know how much they have left in the tank. And
Timo Werner, by the way, 3 assists for him in his early Tottenham career. 2 matches, 3 assists, and he also, I thought when they brought on Johnson, and this was a big thing, Oliver Skipp. The Tottenham on-off splits over the last 3 years, 4 years with Oliver Skipp on or off are pretty amazingly drastic. And I think he came off at half, and all of a sudden Tottenham just like opened the floodgates on Brentford today. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I think Johnson coming on for Skipp, to kind of keep tabs on what the team news is here, because this total does seem low to me too. I know over 2.5, there's a -150. You're laying juice there, but like, how is this not 3? With the way Tottenham has been playing.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Fully 3. And it's like there's 3, but like +110. You could lay a little bit more juice, but 2.5 -150 feels awfully short. I have this over 3, like 3.11. So yeah, I kind of want to bet the over too, but just kind of uncertain right now.
Okay.
Everton, by the way, real quick note, since somebody has brought up in our Discord, we talked about this today, and Everton, if you bet the money line every match this season, Michael, guess the ROI percentage. It could be positive or negative.
Ooh, I would say it's like bang even almost.
Yeah, so you'd actually have the 6th best numbers in the Prem, 4% ROI, betting Everton money line every match this season at the close. So it has not been, I know we bet them a lot on the show to varying degrees of success, as we like to say, but they have not been bad. Even though it feels like they haven't won a match in forever, and they haven't, they have not been, so to speak, bad. And it's not like they've had a ton of big upsets where it's like they're getting carried by 1 or 2 big games.
Right. All right, let's talk about that headliner at the top of the table. Liverpool and Arsenal both coming off of wins, to Liverpool to stay at the top of the table, Arsenal to keep pace. City won as well. Villa lost, so we're now looking at City and Arsenal trailing by 5 points. City's got a game in hand on the two of them, and Liverpool at the top on 51 points. These two teams also, like as you said, like we're flipping the calendar. They didn't play all that long ago. Fortress Anfield was breached. Arsenal comes out with a draw. First team to ever get a point on the road at Anfield, according to Anthony DeBundo.
Correct.
This, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a similar outcome here, with more of a stodgy match than I think people associate with Liverpool.
Yeah.
Arsenal's defense should be the unit that does the talking, I think, here in this match, and kind of controls how this thing goes. I don't hate the draw. I think plus 260 on the draw in big games. Usually the draw gets a little inflated because nobody wants to bet it. They either want to bet, Arsenal or Liverpool to win. Puts a little bit of value there. So I'm gonna be on the draw, I think, on this maybe the biggest match of the season to date.
Yeah, I'm going to take the under 3. There's a minus 125. I don't mind under 2.5 if you can get plus 115 or better. I think those are good too. I agree. I think, when we go back, we have to pull up the tape. I really wish BJ were here because I want a victory lap that Arsenal was not able to keep control of the match at Anfield at all. And they really struggled with Liverpool's pressure. The traditionally elite build-up team that Arsenal is really struggled to maintain control of the game. And I think that's just kind of what Liverpool does to teams when you go to Anfield. And that's why I don't like betting it to, teams at Anfield. And I paid for it today with Chelsea, who got destroyed and absolutely annihilated. Liverpool forced 12 high turnovers today. Chelsea had not been a bad build-up team in the past. They completely crumbled today. And we talked about how Chelsea have kind of played up pretty well. Not today. So when you look at this, they also played in the FA Cup. Now, it was a rotated team, but there was less than 2 expected goals in both matchups this season between the two teams. And if you go back and remember what happened in the first meeting, I mentioned how, Liverpool were able to force some mistakes and create some attacking opportunities. And Arsenal early on in the game really put pressure on Liverpool's back line. The 4 center backs were excellent in that game in shutting everything down. And all 4 of them are fit here. And I think that's the huge thing, right? Liverpool's defense, when Konate is out or Van Dijk is out, there's a clear drop off to the backups. And it looks like McAllister's fine. He picked up a knock today, but it looks like he's going to be fine. They have their most athletic midfield available to go after Arsenal in terms of, maintaining and not getting overrun in the midfield. And I think Arsenal's defense, like you said, is the key to kind of controlling this match. And they'll be able to better do it at home compared to what they did on the road. For example, this year, Arsenal played 11 home league matches. They've conceded 8 XG. That's really crazy level stuff. And so I think Gunners control tempo here. I liked Arsenal. I liked Liverpool this morning. It was plus a half was minus 125. And I was like, there's not that much of a gap here. And then Liverpool went and beat the snot out of Chelsea and they took a market bump. And now it's pretty close to a pick 'em. Arsenal are just under a quarter goal favorite, and now I think it's kind of right. So no bet for me on the side, but I certainly like the under here, and I think this is going to be a cagey affair. I could see 1-1. I don't think either team wants to lose it. Liverpool's in a position where a point is a great result.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's part of what I'm thinking here.
And no, I still don't think will Trent even play the full 90 because they have Connor Bradley now, who's
no, they don't need.
better than Trent.
They've got what we're recording this on January 31st, 9 p.m. They got a couple hours to sell Trent, sell high on him because they got his replacement in tow.
I want an assist today for him, but yeah, I mean Trent being out, massive for the under, just at both ends of the pitch, and Salah, so even though Nunez has been their best player this season, by far. Salah still matters a lot. He's one of the 5 or 6 most productive players in the league. So Nunez, by the way, here's some fun stats that I read today at Opta. He hit the woodwork 9 times now this year. No other player has done it more than 3 times. That's the most times hitting the woodwork in a game since they have the records back to 2003. 4 times today hit the woodwork, including on the pen. Darwin, despite all of these so-called finishing issues, and they are finishing issues, he has 11 assists in all competitions for Liverpool this year. He's been one of the best creative players in the world, and his attacking production output is best in the Prem this year if you combine, goals and shot creation and assists for others. So worth the money, Darwin. But still, I like the under here.
Yeah. One thing about Arsenal too is they're 5-1-3 win-draw loss since the beginning of December. You look under the hood, and according to Understats expected points, they should be top of the table in that span.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's going. The results are poor for Arsenal, but it looks the process still looks good. So
yeah, I mean, if this gets to a true pick, this sounds crazy. If this gets to a true pick, I'm betting Arsenal.
Yeah,
I don't think it will, but it sounds crazy given what I said about both of these teams on this podcast this year. But a pick 'em like a -110 at home, I would lay it with Arsenal. I really don't think that they've been materially worse in the last. I know they lost some games just because of how they play, and some variance got them, but they haven't been materially worse. They just kind of ran bad, and Liverpool hasn't necessarily turned on the Jets. Darwin had a big game or two, but they're still short. They're two of their three best attackers. Their three best attackers are Darwin, Salah, Trent. Two of them don't play. It's an interesting conversation.
All right, let's so that's Everton and Tottenham are the first match Saturday morning. Arsenal and Liverpool are coming your way on Sunday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. Let's flip back to Saturday. I should note that we are recording this on Wednesday night like we always do, which means that we haven't seen West Ham, Bournemouth yet, and we haven't seen Wolves and Man United either. But let's talk Brighton and Roy Hodgson's suddenly hot Crystal Palace. One win on the spin for the Eagles. Brighton's -163, Palace +450. The draw pays out 3-1 here. This, of course, is the famous derby, the poo in the locker room derby. Go ahead and look that one up. These two clubs, these two fan bases don't like one another. It's an interesting rivalry. I thought we were going to get a better situation to bet Brighton here, but we didn't get it with the way that they're going. I do have some concerns about whether or not this team is I feel like with Brighton over the past 3 seasons, so much of their success has been just the team all pulling the rope in the same direction. And with the murmurs about De Zerbi kind of just piling up over the course of the last few months, you just wonder if maybe things are going a little off the rail a bit. But I've got no play here. I would be much closer to betting Crystal Palace because I just think that they, against this Brighton team that looks not great at the moment, Palace could turn this thing into a rock fight and play to their number. But yeah, you know what? I actually think I'm going to bet Palace here. I'm thinking about it more and more. Yeah, this is kind of the spot you'd want to do it. And I don't know, with the way that they came back, I don't know. I've got no problem with it, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, Brighton plays some of the most high variance style in the league. So if you like Palace, probably should chase a price, right? Like a plus a half, plus money line, or whatever. We did the pod Sunday for the preview for the midweek. I was not under the impression Michael Olise was going to play.
Yeah.
And then he did. And I was looking at the number and I was like, man, I know I said on the show, I kind of like to draw, but Palace is -145 with Olise and Eze in. That's kind of short. And I didn't bet it. And then they were down 1-0 inside a minute. And I was like, great job. You avoided the trap. Sheffield was always, and then of course, Palace comes back to win. 2 assists for Olise. I mean, him and Eze are just really, really good. And Eze picked up a knock again, of course, because they can't ever play more than 2 hours together without getting hurt. But I know you love Roy. I would love to see Potter come into this team. I would love to see a different manager because they have so many good players when they have the ball at their feet. Richards, Anderson, Gahey, very good ball playing center backs and midfielders. Eze and Olise, we watch them time and time again. This is a really good core, and they just don't really put up impressive numbers because they play a style that's so bleh. It's so uninspiring, and they're not that good defending without the ball. So they don't have a ton of ball winners. They have a lot of ball players. So I wish Potter would come in, but Roy gets the win. So I'm kind of rooting for Brighton because I want to see Potter come into this team and then I bet the shit out of them because I think they'd be super live. But the biggest thing that happened to Brighton at Luton is Brighton's one of the best build-up teams in the world. We've talked about this over and over again. It's really hard to break it up. And when Palace played Brighton in December, Palace went after him a little bit and then forced a mistake from I don't remember which goalie was in the net, but the goalie made a mistake. They turned him over high, scored 1-0. But then what happened was Palace kind of started to wear out and kind of ran out of gas, and they had to sit deeper and deeper. And as that happened, Brighton was the only team playing at that point. Like Palace were defending for their lives, barely held on to a 1-1 draw, fifth straight 1-1 draw at Selhurst in that rivalry. Now they go to Brighton, and the total's lower than it was for the first game because I bet the under in the first game, and I was like, yeah, like Palace can defend, and at home they're going to be a much tougher outfit. Now on the road, like Brighton's team total should be higher. Brighton's everything, like the total should be higher with this game being at Brighton. So I kind of like the over, but I want to wait and make sure SA is playing and see what Brighton's doing with some of these AFCON players and I guess Japan advanced, so they won't get Matoma back, but this total just seems low to me. Over 2.5 minus 130. I have this closer to 3. I think that it's a little bit low. And so if Eze and Elise both go, you're going to see me fire on the over.
All right, let's talk Burnley and Fulham quickly here. Burnley didn't get the draw against Man City like we asked out of them. Good effort, though.
Somebody texted me, like, the final XG was pretty close.
Yeah.
Like, we could have had it. And then I was like, did you watch the match? And they said no. And I said, well, yeah, Burnley had a 0.95 XG chance in stoppage time to get to 1.4. It was not a competitive match whatsoever. But
they are a home underdog against Fulham, which always is a little tempting, but they're only plus 200, and the draw here is plus 230. I mean, it's a massive opportunity for Burnley. You don't want to. It's not a relegation 6-pointer because Fulham is safe in 13th place right now, but this is a game that Burnley would have circled as a huge opportunity to pad to put 3 points in their pocket. You've been riding with the Fulham unders. It worked quite well against Everton because neither team found the back of the net. Like I said, Everton was down on their feet. You got a little bit of luck with some good goalkeeping and from both Anthony Robinson and Jordan Pickford. But I guess you're going with the if it ain't broke, don't fix it situation here and going back to this under.
Yeah, so here's the thing. There's a stat thing at Opta. They have Premier League stats, individual players. You can rate every player by their attacking contribution coefficient. And I talked about this earlier when we talked about Liverpool. Like Darwin is number 1 in the league. Mo Salah, Doku, Jesus, Leon Bailey, Eze, Garnacho, Holland, Jota, Madison. You want to be at the top of the list. Antoine Semenyo makes it in there. Cole Palmer, Son, Watkins, Odegaard, Fernandez, whatever. Neither of these teams... There's only one player for either of these teams that makes it into the top 35 in the entire league on the list. One player. And his name is Alex Iwobi. He's still under international duty. He will not be playing for Fulham. So this matchup, we already saw it. It was a 2-0 win for Burnley. Burnley scored a screamer from outside the box. Fulham took 17 shots with less than 1 XG in total. They couldn't break down the block. They want to make the matches frenetic, but Burnley wants to slow it down and have these long possessions. And these are 2 bottom 5 attacks by XG, by expected threat. I bet the under 2.5 in the first meeting. It cashed pretty easily, even though it was 2-0. And I'm happy to bet it again at minus 110. I think it's too high. And I think you haven't seen all of the totals get totally inflated this year. I thought you'd see like we'd be able to bet more unders than we have been. But this is one where it's like in a different year, this would be 2.25, given the injuries and given the absences and what we're dealing with. The best attacking player by the metric in this game is Willian. He's number 1. And then Burnley, and then Andreas Pereira, and then Raul. And you go further down the list. I still haven't gotten to a Burnley player. So it takes a long time before you make your way down to Mdouni for their best attacking contribution players. So there's just not good enough attacks to warrant 2.5. I know Fulham's defense is not very good either, but 2.5 too high. So under.
If I had to make a bet here, it would be on Burnley, but I'm just not gonna do it. Not good enough. Luton
Fulham's
Town.
defense has been trending up a little bit, and they've played.
Yeah.
It's now 4 straight unders if you bet Fulham unders. So
Yeah, Jimenez. What's he got? 5 on the season.
yeah, I think he scored
That
like
golden
3
boot
or
call
4
from
in
2
that
years
like
ago
one stretch.
for me is I was 2 years too early.
What's that?
I said I was 2 years too early on the golden boot call on Jimenez.
Before he got that
Yeah, the
head injury.
Newcastle and Luton up next. Look out, Newcastle's back, ladies and gentlemen. Win over Aston Villa 3-1, and now they are hosting Luton Town. So you'd expect them to put 3 more points in their account, and then we have the conversation. Okay, our Newcastle back, but they got to do it first, and they're minus 250 to do so. Luton 6-1. The draw is plus 350. I don't think there's much from a betting perspective here. BJ has a best bet in this match that we'll get to later. But you had a Luton Town aside you wanted to get into here.
Yeah, nothing on this match for me. Newcastle got 2 set piece goals and then an own goal, and they played better for sure. I thought it said more about Villa than Newcastle, to be honest. So we were discussing this in Discord today. I want you to guess the 3 most profitable teams against the spread this year in the entire league, Asian handicap line.
Say it again.
The top 3 ATS in the league this year, Asian handicap line.
Okay. Well, I'm going to guess Luton Town's one of them.
Yes, they're
I'm going to guess Liverpool.
No.
No.
Nope.
They've got what, half dozen draws. Luton, Villa, Everton.
You're close. Luton, Spurs, Villa. Bournemouth 4, Wolves 5.
Wow.
If you go by money line, Luton is not up there, but Luton have been consistently competitive. And it's funny, believe it or not, the top 3 teams, what do they all have in common? Elite goalkeeper play this season. Kaminsky and Vicario and Martinez have all saved way over their XG in terms of post-shot numbers. And it's not that shocking. And okay, let's do the bottom 3 now. This is really interesting. I think you'll know at least one of them.
The bottom 3 would be
against the spread.
Okay. Sheffield United?
No. They're right around even.
Okay. Manchester United?
Manchester United's second worst. If you go by money lines, then Sheffield is the worst. Obviously, they only have 2 wins and they were against bad teams.
Chelsea?
Nope. Chelsea's 500.
Wow.
One is at the top and one is at the bottom.
Yes, City.
City is third worst. Yep.
And then riveting stuff here.
Elite podcasting.
Yeah, it's pretty
Burnley.
good. Burnley, yeah.
The bottom 3 against the spread have been Burnley. Not surprising given that they were like kind of liked a little bit by the market coming into the year. Man United, number 2 worst. Certainly probably our best call we'll make all year. And then 3 was Man City, who, I think we said like there could be some regression even though we think they're going to win the league. And I still think that's the case. I still think they probably end up winning this league, even though they're certainly not as good as they were last year. All right. And then the highest variance team has been Nottingham Forest. They are good on the money line. If you bet them every week, they are bad week to week on the spread because they pulled some big upsets, but they have not been consistently good. And that's all I have. Nothing on this match.
That's fine. We'll get to Forest in a little bit. But first, let's talk Sheffield United and Villa. Sheffield United is only plus 425 at home. Villa minus 167 and the draw is plus 320. I'm not going to lay it, but I was kind of stumbled by this one. What?
Yeah, me too.
What am I missing here? Is everybody out for Aston Villa? Did the team get arrested?
So we just talked about last week. Why is Villa only minus 110 at home against Newcastle?
It makes no sense. I wouldn't argue with anybody who wants to use this.
The market was like pretty high on this team because these 2 teams played at Villa right before Christmas. It was a Friday night, and Villa closed almost a 2-goal favorite. Now they're not even laying a goal. You flip home field, it's not going to get you that far.
Yeah.
So between December and January, when there were like no Prem matches for us to fade Villa, The market has severely downgraded this team. And look, I agree with it. But now I don't really think there's any value in going against Villa with this number. It would be Sheffield or nothing either way for me, because I do think that Sheffield's improved. But even though they scored twice against Palace, they've been playing some crazy games.
Yeah.
Their defense is still very vulnerable, and they showed nothing in attack until the 85th minute against Villa, the first meeting. So I kind of think the line's just right. Like I wouldn't lay it, but I'm not taking it either. So
Bournemouth is odds on hosting Forest. The Cherry is minus 134. The Tricky Trees traveling at plus 333, and a draw here is plus 280. I like Forest again here. I actually wasn't all that discouraged with the Arsenal performance from them at all. I think that they didn't create much, but they were going up against Arsenal. They hung with it, and if you look the past few matches, they've caught a couple big wins, big scalps, and we are recording this before Bournemouth plays West Ham on Thursday, so who knows where this line kind of ping pongs to, but it does feel like maybe a shade too much respect for a Bournemouth team that we really liked, but they've now dropped 2 in a row to good competition, and you can pummel them on their day. Like if you catch them out, like they are susceptible to playing some wild back and forth kind of soccer. So yeah, actually I like Forest on the money line.
are we excited about Gio Reyna? What do we think?
Yeah, I feel like that's going to be the type of situation where we kind of just forget that it ever happened when it's over.
I don't know. I kind of go multiple ways. Forest have built this interesting team, right? Because they have so many players. And it's like, okay, whoever they start, when you have 5 subs and they have like a decent bench, which they do, it's like, why am I not just live betting this team?
Yeah.
Like every time they bring on Taiwo in the second half, it seems like they just like are about to score. And you get way better odds trying to live bet them, team totals when he comes in. I kind of think Reyna, like, they need people who can progress the ball from the midfield to the penalty area and then create for others. And that's like Gio Reyna's best skill. That's what he's good at. And he kind of fits the Gibbs White role a little bit. He can do a little bit of what Alanga does in ball progression without, maybe the shots aren't going to be there for him. But Reyna, he came on against Bochum this weekend, kind of his farewell performance, and was the best player on the pitch at the time for Dortmund. And he didn't ever shoot. He had multiple opportunities to shoot, and he kept looking for the pass. But like, I'm intrigued by Gibbs, White, Reyna, Taiwo. Maybe that's the second half lineup because they're not going to start Reyna and Taiwo because they're worried about injuries for both of them. Like maybe we just need to get Chris Wood off and then they're going to be better. I don't know, but I'm intrigued by Forest.
Chris Wood has what, like 8 goals this season?
He has been okay.
Yeah, he's been fine.
All set pieces, pretty much.
Yeah.
And then that one game against Newcastle. But
Wood, that's true too.
Wood's got like 0.35 XG per 90. Like not bad, but not as much as they're getting off. Like the bench minutes have been much more effective in transition. Wood just, I don't really know that he fits the team that well. But anyway, I think, you still talk about their defensive injuries right now, and we're just at the top of the market on Bournemouth.
Yeah,
so
I mean, and their defensive numbers are just really good. It's almost like the conversation you had in a much more watered down version of the conversation we had about Arsenal, which is like maybe the numbers don't say that they're going to regress, but it's just can they sustain this level of defensive play? Yeah, I know that goals have been going in against them, but you look under the hood, and I think they're second in expected goals allowed since the beginning of November, behind only Arsenal. It's in the last 10 games, I think they're
City,
yeah, they're like right there. It's crazy. It's
you just don't expect it to happen,
right?
And so thus it's like, well, we've seen the best of Bournemouth this year, and
I know
they're one of the most profitable teams, and there's a reason they're minus 140 here. It doesn't mean I want to bet the other side, though. I just kind of think this market's right, and can't be afraid to pass. I do like a lot on this board, so.
Yeah, I like Forest.
Forest team total live at halftime. They haven't scored yet.
Under a couple of conditions.
You may see an app bet come across. It's intriguing.
Another, I like the underdog of this next one we're going to talk about, which is going to sound funny if you listen to our show that we recorded on Sunday night when we were all talking up Chelsea against Liverpool. But Chelsea's now laying minus 163. They're hosting a dangerous Wolves team with a draw sitting at plus 300. And it's so simple. Like, we just can keep having the same conversation about Chelsea when they're taking on Liverpool, when they're taking on Arsenal, when they're taking on Spurs and they're an underdog, or on the road at United or wherever. Like, they're going to be a dangerous underdog in a situation where they have to punch up. Impossible to trust them as a favorite, and I think that Wolves is very live, especially at this price. We've seen it from them all season. We severely underestimated this team coming into the year. They are, on paper, you look at their record, you're like, it's just a middle table team, but then you just read off some of the results, and it gets really kind of impressive quick, even with some of the losses, like the match week 1 against United, where they deserved to win. They held Villa at the height of their powers to a 1-1 draw. They held Newcastle kind of at the height of their powers. They
Could
beat
have won all
City.
3 of those matches.
Hmm?
Really could have won all 3 of them.
Yeah. They beat Spurs. Like,
should have won that one too.
They were in it against Arsenal. They beat Chelsea already this season. This is a just a solid outfit, and at this kind of price, plus 450, I'm more than happy to take on Chelsea.
Yeah, it was like 4 minutes into the match today, and it was before the penalty had gone, and should have been a penalty to Chelsea, but like, who cares? It was not the right side. It was like 3 or 4 minutes in when I realized we were in big trouble, and I was just like, oh, that's right, the team went to Anfield without a striker.
Yeah.
And like, I know I said that like they were getting good production from some of the guys, and I thought that like they could play on the break, but they were just completely unable to play out. They were completely stuck. They had no out ball, and anytime they tried to play it to one of the little guys or even Madueke, they got nothing. And I've seen enough of Madueke right now. Mudryk is giving them nothing off the bench, besides big misses. Can we get Chris Nkunku to start? Can we get Jackson back? I mean, Pochettino, man, that amazing run he had at Spurs. Ever since then, it's been pretty dicey. And look, I love Mauricio for the rest of eternity for that run at Tottenham, but like, at what point do we say, wait a second, like, what's going on here? I know we've wish-watched on Chelsea a lot, but like,
yeah, well, it's because
they look that lost in possession today, given the talent they have, given that they're playing, Conor Gallagher and Moises Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez, is crazy. Like, they have the better midfield on paper than Liverpool, and then they get completely blown away.
It's turned into, and it's a cliche to say it, it's like it's turned into this weird, almost all-star team that they just picked the best players and weren't too concerned about fit, and then you got to make it work, and it doesn't. Like, there's no cohesion in the ranks, it feels like, and makes them really vulnerable as a favorite. I mean, it's not all that different, I think, from United.
I see this best team on the field, though. Like, I want to see Palmer, Jackson, and Nkunku, and whoever the hell you want to play on the left, Sterling or whatever. I want to see all 4 of them, because it is like Jackson was getting 0.66 XG per 90. We know Chris Nkunku's good. He scored today too. We know how talented he is, and we know how the numbers that Palmer was putting up. Like, I want to see this team at their best, but how often are we seeing that? And we're not going to see it, I don't think, this weekend. Jackson had to go back with Senegal. They hoped to play him in this match, and then they couldn't. I thought he was going to be back in time, and he wasn't. And now it's like, okay, we need him for Sunday for sure. So I have nothing here right now. I'll be tempted by Wolves if they can't get Jackson and Nkunku in the team. They just shouldn't be laying 1 without them.
United and West Ham, like Wolves, are also playing on Thursday. So if something happens in that match that impacts this weekend, we won't be able to cover it on this podcast. But you can always find our bets in the app, on Twitter. Anthony's always gabbing about soccer in every corner of the internet.
It's true.
United is minus 134 here. West Ham plus 320, and the draw is plus 300. It's I always like when I'm doing research for the show or for writing articles, wherever, either at Action, New York Post, or wherever I'm doing my work, I always need to remind myself that West Ham is in the top 6 right now.
It's crazy.
It's incredible, honestly. So I mean, it tells you that maybe they are a little bit better than we give them credit for. They've only lost 6 matches out of 21. It feels like I feel like we've watched them lose 14 times this season.
That's because
There's no way I'm
I don't
laying
actually
it.
look at the box score. I block out the goals when I look at the box score, and I just pull up XG, and then I say loss or win. Not actually, but it feels like that because they have been outplayed a lot and still won. Look at
Yeah,
the Chelsea match comes to mind early in the year. They won that 3-1. They got dominated. They played Arsenal. They got pretty lucky there. Spurs, that was a hilarious one. Like they pulled a lot of big wins. They're the most profitable team in the league on the money line this year.
isn't that nuts? Because the way we talked about them probably around Thanksgiving, let's say, we would have probably pegged them, be like, this team's going to be the least profitable team on the money line, among outside of maybe like the extreme outliers in the competition, because we were like, this everything looks so rotten under the hood, but they're getting
They
results.
still can't defend, even though I like the under here.
I honestly, and I'm saying all this, but I would much rather play them in this situation than a United team that, like Chelsea, I'm not going to trust as far as I can punt, especially when they're um, when you had to lay something against a team that's sixth in the league.
Yeah, I don't really trust either team here. I think they're both overvalued, but I think the under is the play here at 3. I just think it's a little high. Uh, Kudus should be back, so you're close to the full strength West Ham group that's been so good in transition. The Kudus, Bowen, Paqueta trio. Uh, you still have the set pieces, and that's their biggest edge here. If you wanted to bet West Ham, the case for West Ham is this is the best set piece team in the league, facing off against a team that is just awful at both ends of the pitch on set pieces, and that's going to cost them. I faded United in the Wolves match, so I haven't actually fired anything yet here. I'm going to wait and see how, because I'm curious to see what Casemiro and Lissandro look like, which I expect them to play Thursday. But I'm all more likely than not going to be firing the under 3 here. I just think that you go back to the first meeting, it was a lot of United stale possession. They couldn't do anything against West Ham's defense. I kind of think they replicate that. It was a classic match where Ten Hag said we were the better team, even though they had 60% of the ball, created 0.7 XG, and did nothing most of the match, and then got beat on the counter and on the break a couple times. And I kind of think that's going to set up similarly. This is like a 1-1 kind of game, and there's way more likely to be 2 than 4. So at almost even money on 3, I like the under.
All right, and the Premier League section wraps up with Brentford at plus 700 against City. Citizens are minus 225, and the draw is plus 333.
Brentford team totals.
You're just gonna keep doing it. I don't know.
I just think the attack is. I mean, the market's not upgrading the attack. It's so much better now. Tony is so good, and I'm not
yeah.
about the goals. Just the way he moves, the way he plays others in, the way he creates for others.
He's an absolute beast to deal with. Like
Yeah,
he's one of maybe 5 strikers in the league that I feel like can win a game on his own. Like he did it against City last year. Just
yeah.
by
They were
being more
beaten a
powerful
while
than
there.
the guys
Most
defending
teams'
him.
score is minus 120. Just too low. I'm sorry. Brentford first half team total. Brentford game team total. You want to sprinkle Tony to score again? Just keep rolling the profits over. Tony to score. I'm probably going to bet it again. I haven't looked at the number yet, but
It should be a decent number because they're it should go up.
let's see if it's up yet. You think it's up? Could be,
Uh,
right? Maybe not because they just played today and it's not till Monday, but I think it will be.
yeah. I'm saying the price should go up is what I'm saying because of the just look at the I mean they're supposed to correlate, but he is to score anytime. Ivan Toney is
Plus
275.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, I've got some profits to roll over, so let's roll it, baby.
Yeah.
Tony to score plus 275. We're going to take some Brentford first half team total and full game. You can just do BTTS or team total. I just think the City attack will have Holland back. I'd imagine he played off the bench today. They're going to get a lot of shots. And unlike past years where I could say, look, Brentford's a good defense. They can force you to take bad shots. They have a good goalie. None of that's really true anymore. They just don't have a good goalie. They don't shot stop well. I think Doku's a big matchup problem for them on the left. So I think City will score, but I think Brentford gets 1 or 2. So give me the Bees to score and all those bets I just mentioned.
Yeah, I don't hate that at all. It's going to take every bit of me not to bet him. on the money line here, so we'll see. Let's move on to the Bundesliga and then Serie A, La Liga, Liga. Everything's back. We got to start with your Super Bowl, which is Gladbach and
Yep.
Bayern Munich.
The best rivalry in sports.
It's funny
Doesn't
because
make any sense.
You come on the show 2 or 3 times a year, depending on how many times they end up facing and cups and all that stuff, and you give the same kind of spiel every time, which is the cliche that you can just absolutely punt the data out the window when these two teams clash. Just take everything, kick it out the window, and just accept that it's just going to go off the rails. And whatever you think is like the least likely outcome is going to end up how this game plays out.
Yeah, exactly.
0-0?
I mean, look, we have done this show since what? It was 2022, right? We started this, and look, there was a time when Gladbach played a style that legitimately gave Bayern problems. It was like, we are going to win the ball in midfield. We're going to have 3 runners in behind immediately. We're going to play those balls. And back when Bayern didn't play transition defense, Gladbach had better attackers than they do now and could just destroy them on the break. Neuhaus, Thuram, even Playa, like Hoffman, all these guys have kind of, Thuram's at Inter now, Hoffman's at Leverkusen. Like they've moved on, but I'm just going to run through the history, right? So since COVID, they played a thriller in 2021. Bayern was up 2-0, blew it, lost 3-2, the famed Florian Neuhaus game. Bayern got their revenge. They won 6-0 at home. In May of 2021, Gladbach was already on the beach by then. Their manager was leaving. Since then, Gladbach 2-0. They played 1-1 in the famous Joe Scally game to open the season the following year. 5-0 in the Pokal when Bayern played a full team for Gladbach, winning 5-0. Then they played Gladbach won 2-1 at Bayern the following year. They played to a 1-1 draw last year when Sommer broke the Bundesliga record for saves. He's moved on as well, but they got this new kid, Nicolas, who's been really good in goal. And then Bayern, probably the most absurd of all the wins, was Bayern gave a red card away in the 11th minute, and Gladbach went on to win 3-2. And then they played this year. Bayern scored in stoppage time to win 2-1, but Gladbach covered the +2. It was never in doubt. So, look, it's probably the least confident I've ever been heading into this match. But you know what? It's tradition. It's what we do here. So, +2.5 at Bayern. We're going to sprinkle a little money line, even though the number's too short at 17-1. I may run, though, so I'm going to wait on the money line, see if it doesn't get to 20. But yeah, 2.5 -120, good enough for me. I would play this anyway, but I don't feel as good about it anymore. And sadly, Gladbach got pretty well beat by Leverkusen on the XG tables, but did hold them out for a 0-0 draw. So maybe a little boost for them coming off that big result at Leverkusen. But yeah, so it's Gladbach again. We ride. Last 34 meetings, 15 for Bayern, 13 for Gladbach, 6 draws. Think about that in the context of these two teams. So Gladbach, baby. One more time, at least.
Yeah.
I'm just always going to bet this. I have to
got
do
it.
4 in a row before I stop.
Which is, no, I just think you just always do it. It's not like it happens 3 times a year at most, basically. So they're 13-1 on the money line. When I pulled up the rundown for today's episode and I was calculating the Underdog Parlay odds, I was shocked that I didn't see Gladbach on the list. So
if you just bet first half money line on Gladbach, you would have won the last 5 meetings. The Bayern has come back in a few of them, but the last 5, the first half money line is hit. Even in the Bayern win last, in the fall, and in the 1-1 draw when Sommer broke the record, it was like Bayern had outshot them 10-0. Thuram got 1 breakaway scored right before halftime, 1-0, and then Bayern scored late. So, first half, Gladbach are pretty good on set pieces still. That's a big advantage for them. But other than that, it's hard to make the soccer case for them to win this game. Just the vibes.
Serie A, what do you got?
So I like Atalanta at home against Lazio, +105. Better on both sides and at home. Better attack right now. De Ketelaere is really taking a step forward this season for them. Scamacca has kind of just like found his level. He was never good enough for the Prem, but he's good enough for Serie A, and he's been impressive for them. I think they're the better team at home, so plus 105 on them. Roma, new manager. We've talked about Roma all the time and how elite their defense is. I wonder if it's just like Mourinho's style, never sending people forward. I think this total was too low. Cagliari's attack is undervalued. Roma's, play style being more open now with the new manager, over 2.5 and minus 115 is short. I know Serie A overs are tough these days, but I think that's short. And then in La Liga, I like Rayo Vallecano at home against Sevilla at plus 125 on Monday. I talked about Rayo as a buy team. Bet them against Atleti. They lost in stoppage time, of course, today, but impressive underlying performance. Basically played to a draw at the Wanda. So impressive from them, and I think they're trending up. They're clearly a better team than Sevilla. They've underperformed their XG more than any team. They're playing at a top 5 or 6 level again, even though they've lost some players, lost their manager. They just haven't gotten the results. So I like Vallecano at plus 125 in La Liga. Nothing for me in France. And BJ's not here, but I guess we can do brief AFCON. He likes Japan against in their quarterfinal matchup. They've advanced. He likes them plus 105. He put that in our soccer Discord, so definitely tune in there. They're playing Iran, who will not have Mediterranean, and they just played 120 minutes today. So that's the quarterfinal for them. And he, Nigeria and Mali, the two tickets he gave out at the beginning of the tournament, Nigeria 11-1, Mali 25-1. Both have made the quarters, and they're now 2 of the 3 betting favorites to make it to the to win the whole thing. So we're riding those tickets. Nigeria plays Angola Friday. Mali plays Ivory Coast, the hosts, who fired their manager and then advanced past Senegal, who were the tournament favorites because they got a late pen and then won it in extra time. So the beauty of AFCON, all 8 of the teams that made the quarterfinals in this AFCON, 0 of them made the quarterfinals in the last AFCON. You've got countries that most people who listen to this show have probably never heard of playing in the quarterfinals, whether it's Angola or Cape Verde or Guinea. So it's been a fun tournament. Some daytime action continues Friday, so it should be good. Also, Jurgen Klinsmann is botching with South Korea in the Asian Cup. They continue to be a fade. And they're getting through with the skin of their teeth. So,
okay, Underdog Parlay time. BJ likes our friends of the podcast, or friend of the podcast, Diego Simeone and Atletico Madrid to pull one over in the derby against Real Madrid. They are plus 380 on the money line. You are going to go to AFCON. We're going to take a little detour here. I can't believe it's not Gladbach, but when I saw who the bet came in on, I half forgave you.
Yeah, well, Gladbach, I just don't have a lot of faith. I don't trust the number, and it probably, I will have a sprinkle on Gladbach. But for the parlay to have a realistic chance of maybe winning, let's go with Mali plus 250 on the road, technically, at Ivory Coast. This is the quarterfinal of the AFCON. Look, Mali has a ton of undervalued players who are kind of just like in the lower League One teams and kind of, not a ton of names that are going to like jump off the page at you and be like, wow, that's a really impressive, top end player, but their underlying numbers have been really solid this tournament. They've been stellar defensively. They've outplayed their opponents in every match this tournament. And I think they're undervalued. Look, Ivory Coast, don't let one win trick you. This is still a team that really looked poor throughout the group stage. There was turmoil, and they were on their way out of the tournament and getting outplayed until, they get a late pen at home and they get through against Senegal. But like, they lost to Nigeria. They lost to Equatorial Guinea in a match that they were, pretty even with a bad team. So I think they're clearly overvalued, and I'm rolling with Mali on the road money line.
I'm going to go with Wolverhampton to pull the upset against Chelsea at plus 450. Wolves on the road here, and we've talked about how Chelsea can basically lose to any team in the Premier League. And they can also beat any team in the Premier League, so that makes them a little vulnerable here. Here are a couple of teams, a couple of results that give me some confidence that Chelsea can drop this one. They've already lost to Wolves. They've lost to Everton. West Ham, who we don't think too highly of, they lost to Forest. The draw with Bournemouth. They've had plenty of banana skins that they've slipped on all season. So I like Wolves at better than plus 400. They're plus 450 to get it done. Mali, Atletico Madrid, and Wolves. That pays out 91-1. If you want to throw in Gladbach, you'd get 1,293 to 1. All right, best bets in the Premier League now. BJ has given us his favorite play, which is Newcastle and Luton to go over 3 at minus 105. My favorite bet is a play on Nottingham Forest in a sell high spot against Bournemouth. Bournemouth minus 134 at home. I think that the Bournemouth kind of hype that you were kind of leading the charge on, and even when they were in the dumps, is well earned and well deserved. And this team is much better than most people thought they would be. But at some point, these defensive numbers should come down a bit, and I think Forest is trending up in the right direction under Nuno for now, and there is some talent in their ranks. So I just don't think the gap between these two teams is as wide as these odds say, and I think Forest for the time being is a play-on team, and Bournemouth is a little too expensive in the market. Anthony, you can take us home with your favorite bet.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the big game. Liverpool, Arsenal under 3, minus 125. Really think that, as much as Arsenal failed to control the game and really slow it down to their pace in the first meeting at Liverpool, I think they'll be able to do a better job of that on home soil. I think they'll play this game at their own pace, and it'll be a very kind of low event, grinded out kind of game. With all 4 center backs healthy, these are 2 of the 4 best defenses in the league, maybe 3 even. I think Liverpool's defense has kind of got weird numbers this year because they played so many minutes with varying game states and various injuries and whatnot, but they're going to have Konate and Van Dijk in there. And I think without Salah and potentially without Alexander-Arnold, like it's just Darwizzi right now, and he's been amazing. But this is the best defense in Europe in Arsenal, and I think it's going to be a low event match. So I think it's like a 1-1 game, like under 3, minus 125.
All right, perfect. That does it for us this week on Wondergoal. We'll be back next week to go over more Premier League and European action. Be sure to follow Anthony, BJ, and myself in the Action app. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe on wherever you listen to these podcasts. Thank you to our producer, Noah. Thank you to our sponsors, Bet365. Best of luck to everybody with all your bets, especially if you're going to be riding with Anthony and myself on Gladbach against Bayern Munich.